They say a man's home is his castle, but in Hollywood, some castles are just too strange to show off. Behind tall hedges and coated gates lie mansions with secrets that are too bizarre, too scandalous, or too embarrassing to make it onto glossy magazine spreads. From UFO landing pads to underground bunkers built for the apocalypse, these celebrity estates were hidden for a reason. Hit that like button and subscribe, because you're about to tour the 21 weirdest celebrity mansions Hollywood desperately tried to keep under wraps. 1. Michael Jackson's Neverland Ranch. At first glance, Michael Jackson's Neverland Ranch looked like a dream. Built in the late 80s, this 2,700-acre estate in Santa Barbara County featured a private amusement park, a zoo, a train station, and countless childlike fantasies made real. It was Jackson's escape from a childhood lost to fame. But beneath the surface, the estate held secrets darker than fairy tales. Once hailed as a place of magic, Neverland became a crime scene after multiple allegations of child abuse surfaced. Prosecutors and detectives searched the property in the 2000s, unearthing disturbing items and disturbing rumors. Hollywood tried to hide Neverland's decay after Jackson's death in 2009, but by then, the damage was done. The estate, stripped of its amusement rides and animals, stood as a ghost town of misplaced innocence. No celebrity wanted to inherit its legacy. That's why Neverland, once worth $100 million, was sold for a fraction of its value in 2020, quietly and without ceremony. It wasn't just weird, it was haunted by controversy. Hollywood buried it with silence. 2. Nicolas Cage's Haunted LaLaurie Mansion. At the height of his eccentric spending spree, Nicolas Cage purchased one of the most cursed properties in America, the LaLaurie Mansion in New Orleans. Known as the site of grotesque slave torture during the 1800s under Madame Delphine LaLaurie, this mansion came with a chilling past soaked in blood and screams. Locals still whisper about ghost sightings, cries in the night, and eerie shadows pacing the balconies. Cage was drawn to its dark mystique, but even he couldn't escape the curse. Financial ruin followed soon after, and he lost the property to foreclosure. Hollywood avoided discussing this chapter of his life, embarrassed by the absurdity of an Oscar-winning actor being spiritually and financially wrecked by a haunted house. Today, the mansion is off-limits to the public, shuttered behind heavy gates. Tours stop at its edge, but no one is allowed inside. Hollywood's PR machine worked overtime to erase this bizarre tale from his resume. Yet the story still lingers, a mansion so infamous, even the city of New Orleans wishes it would disappear. 3. Mike Tyson's Ohio Mansion. Before Iron Mike's downfall, his lavish 25,000-square-foot mansion in Ohio was the stuff of excess. With gold-plated fittings, massive crystal chandeliers, and even a cage for his pet tigers, the home screamed money, power, and a touch of madness. Built during his peak boxing years, it was a place where champagne flowed, Ferraris were parked inside, and no one said no to the champ. But Tyson's fortunes crumbled with lawsuits, arrests, and bankruptcy. The mansion was abandoned in the early 2000s, left to rot with empty pools, decaying carpets, and prayer rooms desecrated by graffiti. Hollywood didn't want anyone to see this grotesque symbol of fallen glory, a reminder of what happens when unchecked fame burns out. Photos of the mansion's wreckage only surfaced years later when urban explorers sneaked inside. The house was eventually donated to a local church, its bizarre legacy quietly buried under gospel songs and community outreach. Tyson's team never spoke about it publicly again. One of the weirdest, most excessive mansions in celebrity history, hidden under a veil of shame. 4. Zsa Gabor's Pink Palace. At first, Zsa Gabor's mansion in Bel Air was a fairy tale. Drenched in pastel pinks, glittering chandeliers, and ornate gold trim, it was a Barbie dream house brought to life by Hollywood royalty. But behind the gilded walls was a life slowly unraveling. As Gabor aged, her world shrank to a few pink-frosted rooms, and the mansion became her bubble, locked away from reality. She lived there nearly immobile for decades, confined to a single room while scandals swirled outside, lawsuits, financial ruin, and a husband with questionable motives. The mansion decayed quietly, and visitors were rarely allowed in. It was awkward, outdated, and a little sad. Hollywood never paraded it because it was a cautionary tale dressed in satin. What happens when fame becomes isolation? After her death in 2016, the house sold quietly, stripped of its rhinestones and secrets. But for decades, Gabor's fantasy mansion was hidden in plain sight. Too weird, too tragic to celebrate. 5. John Travolta's Airport Mansion. When most celebrities talk about open floor plans, they don't mean literal airplane runways, but John Travolta's bizarre Florida mansion comes equipped with 2 full runways, because he didn't just live there, he landed his jets there. A certified pilot, Travolta designed the home around his obsession with aviation, even parking his Boeing 707 next to the kitchen. Yes, next to the kitchen. Photos show his private airstrip stretching past the living room windows, his personal planes gleaming like cars in a driveway. Hollywood never promoted this strange slice of luxury, perhaps because it seemed out of touch, even for the elite. While the mansion is functional, it screams eccentricity, and Travolta's own public image began to feel more alien than glamorous. Neighbors whispered about the noise, the fumes, and the strange, lonely lifestyle of a man who lived with jets as housemates. The mansion still exists, hidden deep in Ocala, Florida, but it's the kind of weird that Hollywood politely ignores. 6. Lady Gaga's Malibu Compound. From the outside, Lady Gaga's $22 million Malibu mansion looks like a serene coastal estate with sweeping ocean views. But deep inside this property lies something much stranger. Secret underground tunnels, a hidden Batcave-styled lounge, and even a retro bowling alley buried beneath the home. Gaga reportedly had these unique features designed for privacy, escapism, and fantasy roleplay. Hollywood never showcased these bizarre details because they blurred the line between genius and eccentric. Gaga admitted to believing in paranormal energy and wanted the mansion spiritually cleansed after moving in. She even claimed to have ghost hunting gear installed on site. The home reflects not just her taste, but her mental state during a volatile career phase. With rumors of depression, isolation, and pressure from fame, the mansion wasn't just a sanctuary. It became a fortress of the mind. The media mostly ignored these elements, focusing on her music and fashion. But Gaga's mansion, with its labyrinthine escape routes and spiritual shields, was weirder than anyone knew, and Hollywood preferred it that way. 7. Howard Hughes' Desert Inn, Penthouse. Howard Hughes, the reclusive billionaire, didn't just hide himself, he built a private prison in the sky. In 1966, he moved into the top floor of the Desert Inn in Las Vegas and never left. For years, the once glamorous penthouse became his fortress of solitude. With blackout curtains, air filtration systems, and zero contact with the outside world, Hughes transformed the luxury suite into a bizarre bunker. He bought the hotel just to avoid being evicted. Security was so tight that hotel staff weren't allowed to speak his name. Hollywood executives whispered about the madness, but no one dared to tell the truth publicly. Hughes, once a titan of cinema and aviation, had become a prisoner of paranoia. For decades, Hollywood tried to downplay just how bizarre this setup really was. The room itself was later gutted and quietly erased from hotel blueprints. But for a time, it stood as a chilling symbol of how wealth, fame, and fear can trap even the most powerful. A mansion not of marble and gardens, but of walls, silence, and shadows. 8. Tom Brady and Giselle Bunchons' Eco Castle. You'd think a mansion built by the most glamorous couple in America would be a showcase. But when Tom Brady and Giselle Bunchon completed their $20 million custom-built Brentwood mansion, Hollywood didn't know what to make of it. The eco-friendly fortress had a functioning moat, a drawbridge-like entry, and a luxury chicken coop. Yes, chickens, because Giselle believed in organic living at the most luxurious scale. The home also had a meditation platform, walls made of reclaimed wood, and a koi pond doubling as a spiritual cleansing pool. To outsiders, it looked like a medieval fantasy crossed with a Whole Foods. Though designed with sustainability in mind, the home came off as odd, even pretentious. Hollywood never promoted it as a dream home. In fact, they quietly distanced the image-conscious couple from its more outlandish elements. The mansion was sold just months after it was finished. Why? Some said they felt too exposed. Others whispered it was just too weird. Either way, it vanished from the spotlight. And that was exactly the point. 9. Celine Dion's Waterpark Mansion. Celine Dion's Jupiter Island mansion was less a home and more a personal theme park. Designed with water as its central theme, the estate featured multiple pools, slides, fountains, and even a man-made river that flowed through the backyard. It was built not just for privacy, but to feel like a private resort. So why did Hollywood try to hide it? Because the whole thing was, frankly, over the top. Reports surfaced that water bills soared past $30,000 per month. The home's filtration systems were so advanced they required constant maintenance by a dedicated team. And when it came time to sell, no one wanted to buy a house that was practically drowning in its own novelty. Hollywood never showcased this bizarre palace because it made even the richest stars look ridiculous. When Dion finally sold the home for half its value, it was quietly removed from listing sites. A literal water world that couldn't keep afloat. Weird, wonderful, and just a little too much. 10th, Kanye West's Concrete Bunker. After years of opulence, Kanye West shocked the world by turning to minimalism, extreme minimalism. His Calabasas mansion, designed with Belgian architect Axel Vervoort, resembled a concrete monastery. Stark white walls, no visible furniture, and long, empty corridors gave the impression of a post-apocalyptic art museum. Visitors described the house as silent, eerie, and almost clinical. Even bathrooms lacked traditional fixtures. Kanye called it a futuristic monastery for thought, but others just called it disturbing. Hollywood didn't quite know how to handle it. Architecture magazines praised the boldness, but celebrity media avoided coverage altogether. Why? Because it looked more like a cult compound than a family home. The mansion was a visual metaphor for Kanye's unraveling public persona. Genius or madness, no one could say. After his divorce from Kim Kardashian, the home was abandoned, left as a hollow shrine to a vision no one else understood. It's still there, but few dare revisit it. 11. Bert Reynolds' Ranch. When Bert Reynolds bought his 153-acre Florida property, he didn't just build a mansion, he recreated the Old West. The estate included a full-blown Western movie set, complete with a saloon, sheriff's office, and jailhouse, all built for his own amusement. It was like walking onto a 1950s cowboy film with Reynolds playing sheriff in real life. He even hosted parties and weddings there in full costume. But as the star's fortunes declined, so did the ranch. The buildings began to rot. Debts piled up. By the time Reynolds was forced to sell in 2015, the fake town was covered in vines, its facades crumbling. Hollywood avoided showing the decay. Too heartbreaking, too weird. It wasn't just a home. It was a fantasy world that mirrored his fading fame. Reynolds called it his soul, yet it was sold off in pieces. The western town was quietly bulldozed. For a time, it was the strangest private film set never used for a movie. Just a lonely cowboy's playground that Hollywood didn't know how to mourn. 12. Aaron Spelling's The Manor. Built in 1991 by television titan Aaron Spelling, The Manor wasn't just a mansion. It was an architectural scream. With 123 rooms, 14 bedrooms, and a gift-wrapping room, the estate was so outrageous it made even Hollywood royalty cringe. There was a humidity-controlled doll museum, a silver room for storing china, and a custom screening theater that could fit 80 guests. The excess became a punchline in Hollywood. Spelling's daughter, Tori, tried defending it as a warm place, but the public saw it as a grotesque symbol of 1990s wealth. Even Oprah turned it down for a feature. For years, no one wanted to touch it. It was too large to sell, too weird to live in, and too ridiculous to glorify. After Spelling's death, it took years to offload the property, which underwent multiple renovations to reduce its over-the-top features. The Manor remains a monument to TV riches, but Hollywood learned quickly not to brag about it. It was the mansion you pretended not to own. 13. Charlie Chaplin's Forgotten Beverly Hills Home. Charlie Chaplin, the man who helped define Hollywood, once owned a grand but oddly designed estate in Beverly Hills. Unlike other mansions, Chaplin's home was built in strange proportions: secret rooms, curving staircases to nowhere, and hidden corridors only he could navigate. It was said that the home's odd blueprint reflected his artistic process: chaotic, creative, and deeply private. After his exile from the U.S. in the 1950s, the mansion was left to caretakers and fell into obscurity. By the 1980s, it was overgrown, with rusted fountains and boarded-up windows. Tour buses didn't stop here. No celebrities snapped selfies at the gate. Hollywood preferred to forget that one of its founders left behind a relic of eccentricity. The home was eventually purchased and rebuilt, its original character erased. For a time, it stood frozen in the past, like a black-and-white film set left to decay. A mansion full of silent ghosts, too awkward for the spotlight. 14. Mel Gibson's Costa Rican jungle estate. Far from Hollywood's hills, Mel Gibson built a mansion deep in the Costa Rican jungle, so remote it can only be accessed by private plane or boat. The estate spans over 400 acres and includes 3 houses, miles of wilderness, and indigenous art carved into the walls. Gibson, known for his erratic behavior, bought the property after Apocalypto and allegedly modeled parts of it after the film's ancient civilizations. Locals referred to it as the Jungle Fortress. Why was it hidden? Because it was wild, even by celebrity standards. With security outposts, hunting zones, and shrines scattered across the land, it felt less like a home and more like a survivalist camp. Rumors spread that Gibson wanted a place to retreat in case of societal collapse. The mansion was quietly listed for $30 million, but had no takers. It was just too strange, too remote, and too Mad Max. Hollywood didn't publicize it, because it wasn't a dream home. It was a doomsday fantasy built by a man the industry had tried to forget. 15. Elvis Presley's Circle G Ranch. While Graceland is a celebrated landmark, Elvis Presley's lesser-known Circle G Ranch in Mississippi is a mystery wrapped in barbed wire. Bought during his cowboy phase in the late 1960s, Elvis turned the estate into a Wild West wonderland. He rode horses in diamond-studded cowboy boots, built barns with chandeliers, and gifted matching trucks to his entourage. But the dream didn't last. Financial strains and internal drama led Elvis to abandon the property after just a year. For decades, it sat in eerie silence. Decaying barns, overgrown pastures, and rusted Cadillacs left in the mud. Fans weren't allowed in, and Hollywood rarely mentioned it. Why? Because Circle G revealed a vulnerable Elvis, desperate to find identity beyond the stage. It was weird, wild, and sad. The estate was finally bought by developers in the 2010s, but little was preserved. The king's forgotten cowboy kingdom, buried by time and shame. 16. Dennis Rodman's Psychedelic Palace. Dennis Rodman has never done subtle, and his Orange County mansion was proof. With leopard print walls, psychedelic paint splashes, indoor waterfalls, and murals of himself in superhero costumes, the place looked like a Las Vegas fever dream. No two rooms followed the same color scheme. The kitchen was hot pink. The dining room glowed under black light. Rodman called it home, but Hollywood realtors called it unsellable. After his NBA career declined and legal troubles mounted, the mansion was abandoned. The decor, once flamboyant, became sad, a reflection of a man who lost control both financially and emotionally. Photos of the decaying home leaked online, drawing ridicule and pity. Yet no one in Hollywood mentioned it, not in interviews, not in biographies. It was quietly scrubbed from his brand, a mansion so loud it was silenced by shame. 17. Oprah Winfrey's Maui Retreat. Oprah's Hawaiian estate is the opposite of her brand, exclusive, secretive, and surprisingly off-limits. Nestled deep in Maui's countryside, this sprawling 60-acre farm-like estate features zero flashy signs of celebrity wealth. Instead, it's guarded like a military base, with helicopters used for travel and drones for security. Oprah grows her own vegetables, lives largely off-grid, and rarely lets cameras inside. Some say it's her way of escaping public life. Others call it a billionaire's doomsday retreat. Rumors of underground bunkers, safe rooms, and political guests have swirled for years. Hollywood respects Oprah, so it says nothing. But behind the silence is a mansion too secretive to ignore, and too private to showcase. While tabloids call it serene, others whisper about what she's preparing for. It's weird, yes, but deliberately so. 18. Liberace's Glitter Mansion. Few homes screamed, "Look at me," louder than Liberace's Hollywood mansion. Walls covered in mirrors, pianos embedded in the floors, and chandeliers in the bathrooms, it was part museum, part hallucination. The grand piano-shaped swimming pool was perhaps the least absurd part. But after his death in 1987, the mansion fell into eerie disrepair. Mirrors cracked. Velvet furniture grew mold. Hollywood avoided showcasing it because it reminded them of excess gone stale. Even fans were shocked when rare glimpses showed a glitter empire turning to dust. The mansion was finally demolished in the 2010s without tribute or ceremony. Too campy for preservation, too awkward for restoration. A monument to a persona larger than life, and too strange to survive the decades. 19. Jim Carrey's Isolation Estate. Built in Brentwood, Jim Carrey's mansion once reflected the carefree energy of the man who played Ace Ventura. But after personal tragedies and a shift into reclusion, the estate turned into something colder, more mysterious. Carrie began painting obsessively, covering walls in cryptic art and spiritual quotes. Rooms were reportedly stripped of traditional furniture, replaced with studio lights and canvases. Neighbors noticed he rarely left. Visitors said it felt like walking into an existential shrine. No press was ever allowed inside. Hollywood studios distanced themselves from his more erratic years and never featured the estate on tours or interviews. When Carey announced his retirement, the mansion was quietly listed for sale. Few recognized it, because no one ever saw it. It was the strangest reflection of fame collapsing inward, too personal and too peculiar for the public eye. 20. Jared Leto's former military base. Jared Leto doesn't just live differently. He lives in a repurposed Air Force base in Laurel Canyon. The massive compound includes aircraft hangars, industrial dorms, and 50,000 square feet of raw, military space. He calls it a creative monastery, but insiders have compared it to a desert cult headquarters. Photos show concrete walls, blackout rooms, and areas designed for isolation and experimentation. The mansion is linked to his mysterious band tours and spiritual retreats. Some fans refer to it as Camp Mars, but no press tours are allowed. No official documentation confirms what really goes on. Hollywood never promotes it, because it's weird. Too weird. Is it a residence, a temple, or something else entirely? Leto has never explained, and Hollywood doesn't ask. 21. Marilyn Manson's Gothic Fortress. At the height of his fame, Marilyn Manson bought a hilltop mansion in the Hollywood Hills that looked like Dracula designed it. Dark halls lined with red velvet, walls painted matte black, and taxidermy in every corner. Rumored to have a soundproof dungeon, a blood-red recording studio, and a library of occult artifacts, the place was more horror film than home. As Manson's controversies piled up, the mansion became a source of unease. Guests described it as deeply unsettling. Some said they felt watched. After abuse allegations surfaced, the home was vacated, sold discreetly, and renovated beyond recognition. No listing ever referenced its former owner. Hollywood scrubbed its connection completely. It wasn't just weird, it was tainted. A mansion that embodied its owner's persona and had to be hidden to make people forget. Not every mansion in Hollywood is a palace of dreams. Some are fantasies gone too far, or secrets too dark to show. These 21 estates weren't just homes. They were symbols of fame's fragility. Hit like, subscribe, and tell us, which of these weird celebrity mansions shocked you the most?